Very good. Good morning, gentlemen. I'm looking at this the Seattle sky, as I call it here, which we get once in a while in Port Jefferson. I love days like this. It's just depressingly dreary. But look, you wouldn't appreciate the sunny, warm days if you didn't have these. It's kind of cool. I love it. But the water's calm. Look how calm the water is, and the ferry's coming in. And we are in Port Jefferson at the Village Center. We're changing locations today, guys, what I'm excited about. We're usually across the street at Locals, but we have several guests that have material and topics that are true to the Village Center here. First is you guys. You got a show coming up.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
I know we don't wake up in the morning and build models, but there's a reason these are here. We'll get to that. But I'll start with you, John. Tell us about the show and the exposition.
It was Chris's brainchild. We were at a municipal event this July, and he acquired some pictures that he had no information on. And he turned to me and he basically said, I got some Grumman pictures. I know you have an interest in Grumman. Can you tell me exactly what these are? So I came down to the Village Center. We looked at them. I knew exactly what they were. And nonchalantly, he turned to me and he said, we should do a presentation. We should do a photo exhibition. And little did he know what he was getting himself into.
What happened? It just exploded. Grumman is so big and so vast and so important to Long Island, and the guys are jumping out of their chairs, and they just can't believe that somebody is appreciating what they did.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. Grumman to me is like that 6%. What do they call it? 6 degrees of separation thing. Almost everybody knows an uncle, a father, some distant relative, a friend, a prior boss that worked for Grumman. It seems. In my case, my mother-in-law was very happy in Beth Page. I think she just worked on parts. Yeah. What those parts did. They only knew that it was the F-14, but there was not a lot of information.
People loved the company.
They loved the company.
The company
right?
respected them, and they loved the company. And they get teary-eyed talking about it. It's incredible. And yet, we're tripping over them. Every time I talk to somebody, it's like, you need to speak to my uncle.
Awesome.
Or I have some pictures. Can I bring them in?
Yeah,
it's just incredible.
At the heyday, they employed close to about 30,000 people, not only on Long Island, but worldwide. And when Chris mentions that they really took care of their employees, that was Leroy Grumman's mantra. We'll pay you a good wage, we expect you to do a good job, and the rest will take care of itself. And they also had we would call patronage. So it wasn't your mother and your father, but it was also your grandfather, your uncle, your sister, which was working for the company throughout Long Island.
What was happening in the decades where Grumman's heyday was on Long Island? What was happening in the government which allowed? obviously there were contracts that were being written at high levels to substantiate everybody working. There must have been some guys that'll be here on that panel talking about
yes.
that, I'm sure.
Basically, it was the Reagan era, and it was defense spending on steroids in order to outspend the Russians. And it was the culmination of years and years and years of buildup through conflict, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then finally ending with the Berlin Wall coming down.
Right.
So basically the heyday was that Ronald Reagan era of defense spending. It also was the peak, so to speak, because right after that, everybody thought that the threats around the world were neutralized, which we know, of course, were not. Mm-hmm. And so just like they did in World War II, they reduced overhead, they reduced employment, but soon right after that, the ramp up began again, culminating in 9/11 and what we have today. And Grumman vehicles continue to fly over, around, beneath the world, protecting our country.
I think what should be said is that the Grumman, if you had a head of household working for Grumman, it seemed to be a time on Long Island where, I think of the Levittown home or in and around Bethpage, where you really could afford and you actually had expendable income. I don't know you could say that too much today about too many companies. So that was a special time in itself, that if you were an executive at Grumman, I just remember, for example, my wife's uncle was, and he was doing really well. I think there were stock options, as I remember, and things like that. So that's also a little different than today, where, let's face it, Grumman, you might have worked there for 20, 30 years, and today I think the average number of jobs is well over 8 jobs now through a 30-year career. I hate to say it. So that was different about it too. Chris, tell me about how you went about picking some of the artifacts, and it's mostly photos, right? That'll be here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but of course we do have a lot of. Grumman produced a lot of things. Also, they produced models, and they produced stickers, and they produced posters, and they photographed everything. So basically, we are set up here at the Village Center to scan, to print. We have a very large printer. We have a 44-inch printer, and to document, images. Mm-hmm. So and we are set up, and the Village Center is set up to hang those pictures up
on the walls,
all over the walls here. Yeah.
So,
and we do it all the time.
Joe, if you pull up the background, just so people get a sense of this, it's not a one-day event. This event is running January and February, the entire month, just about.
Correct.
But the kickoff, if you will be January 10th.
Yes.
Right.
Which will be spectacular because everybody's welcome.
Yes. Free to the general public.
Free to the general public, 6 to 9 p.m. And the special guests, which probably you don't even know, or do you know exactly who will be there? That'll be
we know who's
Grummanites, if you will, right?
Grummanites. What we did decide to do is have a panel discussion, and basically we were able to gather 8 guests from all different areas of Grumman that worked on different programs.
This is fantastic.
And what we'll do is we will give them an opportunity to tell their stories. I think one of the key here is Leroy Grumman and 2 other associates started the business in a garage. It is truly Americana.
So it's like an Apple story.
It's, it's an Apple story. It's really a Microsoft story. It's really a Hewlett-Packard story.
Right. Because
Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft were started in garages, in basements, and Leroy Grumman and Jake and Ed Toll, who had left, and it's amazing that the Loeing company that they all work for was bought out and had to move to Pennsylvania. So these individuals decided that rather than move to Pennsylvania, their roots were on Long Island. Leroy Grumman was from Huntington. They stayed on Long Island and they created this company. And what's more fascinating was the company was created on the 5th of December 1929, right after the great stock market crashed. And for the next 10 years, they didn't lose any money.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a great piece of information. We just met Vinny DiStefano. He walked in. I mean, you could see this guy. He's in great shape. I mean, these people are older now because of when this started. But look at his job there, VP of Manufacturing.
Yeah.
F-14 program engineers. This is incredible. 8 of these folks will be on a panel discussion, right? LEM. Let's talk about that because we have something here. People don't understand what that is. LEM. What does it stand for, Chris?
This is the lunar. Help me out here, John. Lunar
excursion model.
Excursion model.
Okay.
Module. So this is the 50th this year, right? The 50th anniversary of the landing of the man on the moon.
This guy ended up on the moon. Grumman built. Is that what I'm hearing?
Grumman built. Yes. So we have this whole. This is the descent and the ascent modules, and it had to work, or else we were going to leave. That. If it didn't work, we would be leaving the human beings on the moon.
Were there other components in that whole program, the moon landing from Grumman, mission control or items like that? And maybe we'll learn. Maybe we'll learn that that day.
I don't think so, John. Do you know anything?
Well, what I could say is that DuPont. I think it was DuPont that made the Kapton gold foil. And so
That's
now
cool.
within your car, you have the little silver foil that you'll use as an anti-thermo protection for
Wow.
yourself, so to speak. So during that time, technology was moving ahead, and then Grumman needed something that was going to protect the vehicle not only from the 250-degree temperatures of the sun, but also keep it warm once they got behind the moon, because the temperature then dropped 250 degrees below zero. So they used that to add a thermal shield to the vehicle, and they won the contract in, I guess, 1962. They really didn't have any idea of space atmosphere. So what they did is they worked vigorously to gather as much information and hire as much people that would enable them to build that vehicle. And it basically took them 6 years to build that.
Groundbreaking.
We have a whole part of the exhibit where we're honoring
Fantastic.
the lamp.
Just to the lamp.
this-
Let's talk about some of the other items here. Take it as you will, guys. I see what looks to be an X29 and a F14 model, right?
I would say that this model is probably, when you think of Grumman, you think about the F-14,
Absolutely.
and you think of Top Gun, and you think of Tom Cruise.
We drew these in school
Yes.
all day long.
Yes. Yes.
We made the paper airplanes, flew them at the teacher once in a while.
Yeah.
All good.
The uniqueness about the F-14 was its ability to swing its wings. And so it could go in a slow speed where the wings are fully extended, and basically the extension on the wing helped it to land back on the aircraft carrier. Just to step back, Grumman provided almost 80% of all Navy aircraft going up into the late 90s. And it also had the ability to retract its wings in high speed if it had to get somewhere really quick in order to meet the threat. And so this is an aircraft that can just go under twice the speed of sound, and there are some Grumman test pilots who said they were able to take it up that high and that fast over Long Island. So it's quite a complex vehicle, and it evolved since 1974 and was a tremendous asset for Special Forces on the ground in Afghanistan, because they realized if an F-14 was overhead, it would give them almost an hour to 2 hours of protection, where other aircraft had to constantly go back to the the tanker in order to get fuel, and would leave them vulnerable on the ground. So guys on the ground, even in Afghanistan, Iraq, really
amazing.
loved the F-14.
That's great history.
I just want to add that we have, this area, Port Jefferson and surrounding area, a lot of the test pilots, were from this area. So we have a whole section dedicated to the test pilots. And I think we've been in contact with 4 of the daughters of test pilots.
Yes.
And I hope they come to the January 10th reception. But they have provided us with stories, with background information on a lot of the test pilots.
Wasn't there a story of a plane or something happened out here in Port Jefferson?
A lot of things happened out there. And one of them was, the Panther in December of 1951 crashed outside of Port Jefferson Harbor.
It's incredible.
So that plane was basically fell apart and never really found. I don't know. We're not sure. We're doing some research on it. We're not sure exactly, but that was Bruce Tuttle. And of course,
we have Amy on later.
Tuttle is, she works right across the street here, and she was able to give us all kinds of interesting tidbits about her father and his life, and what really happened compared to what was in the news stories. It was great.
It's great to put, not only is the event here, but there's history literally here in this harbor, in this town, and pilots that live around here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's
And
like it's meant to be. It's
also,
incredible.
Also employees. I mean, we have Bob Tomilowitz, who was a Port Jefferson trustee. He worked at Grumman for some time. We have Chuck Darling that began at Grumman probably in the early 60s. who was a
Shepro.
resident. Hal Shepro, former
Former
mayor.
mayor, wow.
He basically was in charge of flight tests for F-14 LEM. Vinny DiStefano, he also was part of the F-14 program, production manager for that program. And there's probably a whole host of, and Chuck Sewell, test pilot from Setauket, I believe, who was tragically killed in Connecticut. But there's a lot of Grummanites around us.
Was the term Grummanite later, or was it used back in the day?
I think it was used right away.
It was used right away.
Yeah, right away. It was a reference to an employee.
And this one here, this X-29, was actually barged right just 100 feet from where we're, 200 feet from where we're sitting right now, off the back of Danfords. They pull the barge right up there, and they get the crane, and they would move planes in and out right through the harbor.
I had no idea. This
Yeah,
is
we have
interesting.
pictures of
Now we
that.
have the wings almost looking backwards.
They are backwards.
Why?
Well, they were. Yeah, go ahead, John.
It's like everybody was in a design thing.
That's what it was. It was basically pushing the limits of design. This was probably one of the true fly-by-wire aircraft. And what we mean by that is going from the analog to the digital age, all the controls and the features, it still probably had cables in it, but most of the responses were done digitally. And so that was something that was, as Chris said, put on a barge here and flown at Edwards Air Force Base. And the technology in there is currently used in a majority of the aircraft today. And so that's the great thing about Grumman. Grumman built rugged, reliable, and resourceful aircraft. They were rugged, so if you received battle damage, you knew you were coming home. They were reliable, mission capable, and then they were resourceful, using proven platforms. Example, LEM, they knew how to build aircraft, and so if you ripped the antennas and all the other structure off of that, it's basically an aluminum body that weighs less than 3,000 pounds, but built the same way with the same craftsmanship that every aircraft ever come out of Grumman was built, like a Swiss watch.
Very, very cool. I'm going to leave some element of surprise right now. We're with John Hiz, the Belterre historian, Christopher Ryon, the Port Jefferson historian. You all should absolutely come to this event. By the way, who is the sponsor of this event?
Well, we're very lucky because things here at the Village Center are supported by the Conservancy, which is a not-for-profit organization, right? That funds things for the the ink and the paper and all the food and all the things here at the Village Center. So we're very happy.
And they've done such great work. They've done so many other things.
Yes.
Thank God for them, actually, to keep culture alive in this village.
Yep.
If for not for them,
It's the booster.
it wouldn't happen.
It's the booster club of the Village Center.
Great. Thanks again, John Hiz, the Belterre historian, Christopher Ryon, the Port Jefferson historian. We'll see you guys all January 10th for this wonderful photographic tribute to Grumman, 6 to 9 p.m.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.